Welcome, dear viewer, to Hope Channel Kenya. We are on a window on God's mind. And I have with me young scholars from the University of Eastern Africa. And I'll start this time from my immediate left. I have Margaret. I also have Enoch next to her. I have Pastor Veli. I have Tom with me next to Pastor Veli. I have Christina. I have David. I have Sarah. And on the extreme right, I do have Mark. And right at the bottom of your TV screen, you have Mosoti Collins doing sign language for our other viewership. And the discussion that we have today is Satan's charge, really. Does Job fear God for nothing, for naught? And to take us through, we'll start with a prayer from Margaret.
We're praying. Father, Lord in heaven, we thank you for this gift of time. We thank you for this gift of chance. As we go through this question, does Job fear God for nothing? May you please be with us, open our minds, be with our viewers. May they get something good from this. Be with us till the end, for I pray this, believe and trust in your holy name.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we have in Job chapter 1, verses 1 through 3, we're given a graphic portrayal of a man who is wealthy. He has a wife, he has children who are always worshiping. And like Dev was saying in chapter 1, verses 6 through 8, God has put a hedge around him. Is that the case? Could you please read Tom chapter 1, verses 6 through 8?
And the Bible says, Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job? And there is none like him in the whole earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that fears God and shuns away evil.
Pastor Veli, the devil reports and says from walking back and forth to and fro in planet Earth when God inquires where he's coming from. The devil doesn't seem to be stationed somewhere in a summer office. He's up and about.
Yeah, I think that's a reference to the event when Satan was thrown away from the heaven to the earth.
Right.
Now he's going back and forth in the earth. I think we can find it. There's a description from the Revelation 12.
Right.
If that answers you.
Chapter 12, of course it is.
Yes.
Verses 9, are you alluding to that?
Yeah, I think it's verse 9. Let me check.
The upshot being that the devil doesn't stay in one place. He's all over the place to tempt man.
Yes, it says that, so the great dragon was cast out, and that great dragon being Satan. It says in the next sentence that serpent, old called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world, he was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
And yet, God asked him, have you considered my servant? So when the devil is tempting man, God is saying, have you considered? Is that the case, Margaret?
Yeah, and when God says, have you considered, it means even Satan himself had not known about Job. It's like he had, I think by the time Satan was trying to tell God it's because you've put a hedge around him, that was just an excuse. Not to be seen that for sure you haven't thought about Job. All along, he himself knew Job was a strong man, but this was just an excuse But the fact remains that even Satan himself believed that Job shunned evil.
What do you have to say, Enoch?
When we look at Job and the way God brings it out, he still wants to confirm to Satan that Job is my servant and I still have powers. Satan tries his best. My Bible was using a term, Satan as an accuser. You know, when you want to accuse somebody, you must look for all possible excuses. So you can't be seated in one position just waiting like, I will use this. You have to do your research well so that you have an excuse to accuse somebody. But all through, God was still proving to Satan that this is a man who trusts in me, who is upright.
Mark, this is the question I want us to really digest. Does God bribe us with some material prosperity? Hedges in. That's what the devil is saying in verses 8. Have you not hedged around him some protection, given him wealth? He's feeling good. He's sitting pretty. He's a blue-eyed guy.
I don't think God ever bribes anyone. In
The
short,
devil says so.
if we were to go back to the Bible again and counter the argument is that God gives rain to the righteous and the unrighteous. So it doesn't mean he has to bribe us to worship him. It has to be a personal choice to worship God. And when you worship God, it doesn't mean you also have to be rich. Life in itself is a wealth.
Okay, maybe I even want to look at it from Job's case. I want to look at in my life, our lives as human beings. Go to our churches out there, that are not in rich places. We still have worshippers who back at home actually never had anything in the morning. What did God bribe them with? You know, at the same time, if we think God gave us a wealth materially as a bribe, how many of us have these materials, but we still don't worship God? So there's nothing like bribing.
So is the devil a liar?
Just to
Sarah,
add on what...
Is the devil a liar?
Of course he is.
Proof.
Even from the very first time that he met man, he lied to man. And I would just want to say that in his own perspective, he, the devil, was just trying to actually tell God what he was doing. You know, like he wanted people who would follow him. The devil actually tries to bribe people to follow him by making things that are wrong seem right. And in that case, he was trying to accuse God of doing the same thing that he was doing.
The battle is really not with Job from this text.
Okay, Pastor Ken, before you go on.
And maybe handle that.
I think prosperity, when we talk of prosperity, prosperity is one of the blessings that God has, bestowed upon mankind. That's one of the good things that God has really bestowed to
Are you intentional when you say one? Does it mean that there are many other blessings?
Maybe before she could answer that, I want to say it is not a basic.
It's not a basic blessing.
It's not a basic blessing.
But
That's why as she continues to answer that, it is a blessing, yes, but it's not a basic.
She says one of the blessings.
It is one, but I want to say it is not one of the basic
So
things.
one is, which one is the other blessings?
There are a lot of blessings that could come. Prosperity, there are a lot of blessings that God can give our way, not only like prosperity of wealth, prosperity of children, there are a lot of prosperity that God can really allow in our way, but God does not bribe us using the prosperity. But it is God's responsibility actually to allow us get prosperous for the glorification of His name.
David, the people in the cities that are rich and the villages are not necessarily even conscious of God. Mm-hmm. So if prosperity is a blessing, like the devil is charging, then has God bribed others to be wealthy, and yet they don't even worship him?
You see, even without talking about that, you see, when you say that God does such a thing, then it means that some people could have died a long time ago. Because the poorer you are, the higher the chances of you dying, because you can't bribe God. You see, so the poorer you are, the more the chances
of
logic? You. Because if it's a matter of bribing God is what makes us rich, or is what makes us to be blessed, then we'll be losing that point.
Let me ask Tom, what is the consequence of thinking that I can be bribed by God to obey him? What is the consequence of thinking like that?
That I can be bribed by God so that I can
be obedient to him.
be obedient to
That's
him.
what the devil is implying.
Then I will end up serving God out of obligation, but not out of love.
Indebtedness.
Yes.
Takes away the concept of choice.
And relationship. I don't have a relationship. It's out of obligation, because if I don't serve him, then something bad will, out of fear. I
Okay.
will serve him out of fear.
Right.
So it won't be genuine relationship that I have with him.
Just to add on what Tom is just from saying, I think from my own point of view, people get closer to God when they're having a lot of problems. So I wouldn't, honestly, Pastor, if I were, if many people have, even just like as we're students, a lot of people get closer to God during exam times because they want to pass the exams.
Oh.
They get so close to God. When you want something from somebody, you cling to that person.
Pastor Vel, is that fallacious? That when you feel like you really need something, then you become so spiritual. And as soon as you get it, then you can say, God, take a walk, I'm busy, I'm okay.
Yeah, because when you get busy with something, you get so relaxed.
Yes?
No, well, let me tell my own experience. When I gave my life to Christ, I gained a total independence of my life, because I became free from the addictions and obsessions from my life. So in that sense, you might say that I gained also, I was able to take care of myself, take a responsibility of my life.
So to that extent, that was a good thing. Yes.
Maybe I want to give this illustration. You see, a mother is still a mother. Whether, my mother is still going to be my mother even if she gives me food or not. Whether she pays my school fees or not. That obligation of her being a mother still remains to be a mother. God still remains to be God. Whether he gives us those, even if we have wealth or he doesn't have wealth, he's still our God. So the same thing Sarah was saying, when we have problems is when we come closer to God. When kids want to be done favors by their parents, that is the good time they will wash all utensils, you'll call them, they will come. It's the same thing with human beings. But does the mother change? The mother doesn't change. Job could change if he was to change. Human beings, we can always change, but God is stationary.
Maybe
Same way a parent is stationary.
Yes, Mark.
Maybe we get this misconception out of the way that Christianity is a very lazy gospel.
What's that meaning?
I have to pay God to give me more jobs, or I have to bribe God so that I can get something. This thing, plant a seed, add more tithe so that you can get more money at the end of the day, or even a job.
Is it fallacious?
Then it's very fallacious. Because if God himself says you have to work so that you can eat, the world out there thinks that Christianity, we sit back and we say, let's pray, and food will come. Very funny. Yet, in real sense, we ought to work. So I must say prosperity is not only dependent on, let me not be too controversial, that God is a factor. No, he's the overall factor. But you have to put in some effort. So at some point, we have to get off that fact that he gives us prosperity because you're just a Christian or his child. It's a
David, just before I take to Enoch, the Bible says after God had repeated the same description about Job, he says, and Job maintains his integrity. He has lost children, he has lost wealth, he's been tempted really. And God is telling the devil, look, that guy still maintains his integrity. What does it say to you?
See, but by the time when God had decided to choose this man Job as a sample, as
to brag,
yeah,
in your own words,
as a specimen to be used in the lab, because we realized that actually Job was not the whole. Job was just, it was like the grass where the bulls are fighting. So by the time when God was choosing this Job to be a sample for the test, he had known that this man is going to be strong until the end. By the time he was considering Job, he knew that Job was a blameless person. He knew that his spiritual standards are higher, and that's why he had enough trust in him that he will be able to do it, to endure until the end.
Okay, before we go to Enoch, why would God choose Job and not someone? Why not the neighbor to Job? Why not the friends to Job? Why not the wife to Job? I think.
Oh, well, you had a wife there.
There was a wife there. Why not the children? Why not one of the servants? Why Job? It's a question to ask ourselves. How strong is our relationship with God? Does God? Okay, God has confidence in all of us. He knows that the man that He created is a man who is able to choose the right thing. And at the same time, He knows this man is able to choose the wrong thing. But you yourself, do you think you have the confidence of choosing what is right?
So the stakes are cosmic.
Yeah, so I think God, when we say Job was an upright man, meaning that he had matured spiritually. So do you think your life spiritually has matured to Job's time, to Job's state, in that God has confidence in you and Satan has confidence of losing to you, because Satan really, these are just excuses, as I said earlier. So does Satan has the confidence of losing to you?
Wow. Enoch, and then I go back to Tom there, then I'll come back to you.
The underlying factor I'm getting from Job's experience, is that this man, regardless of whatever he was going through, he knew his destiny. He knew who he's serving. He knew he had a goal. He foresaw ahead, and he said, despite all this, even says he says in the where he proclaims that may the name of the Lord be blessed. I came naked, I'll depart naked.
Is that something we know, that we came naked and will depart naked? The way we live sometimes, Enoch,
Yes.
life, and the rest of you, is like we don't realize that we really were born naked and we will be buried without anything.
That is very true. Sometimes humanly we forget. That is why we may be at the same situation where we want a blessing from God because we have done something. After all, what did Job do that God was bribing him to do that was better, to brag for? There was nothing.
Tom, God says, despite you inciting me to ruin him. That's a very serious charge by God. Did God get incited by the devil?
Of course,
Verse 3.
chapter 2, verse 3, that's exactly what God says. But you see, God is all-knowing. He knew the outcome of the whole, the way the whole story is going to play out.
Mm.
But, so it's not for God's benefit.
No.
It's for whose benefit? It's for our benefit. Even the devil himself, he didn't know how the story was going to end. So I believe this is a lesson for, of course, for Job also, and it's written also for admonition, for us to be able to understand.
That's an interesting, Pastor Veli.
I still got a question.
Yes, question.
Despite of all these things that Job is undergoing, was he really aware of...
That's the question I was going to ask Pastor Veli. Was he aware?
Okay, before Pastor Veli answers that, I think by the time we say that, but we always don't know the future. Even God himself says in the Bible that just live today. You don't know about the future, The future, just leave it in God's hands. Many a times, if I knew very well that I'll go to heaven, let me just say that. If I know very well,
as
Margaret, if I know very well I'm going to heaven,
let me listen to
trust
this.
me, I'll be going to church every day doing everything else. But because I know I'm growing, the whole point to me is growing. That's why I fall, I pick up myself. I fall, I pick up myself. If today I knew very well my destiny is going to hell, I wouldn't be on this set, The same thing I think with Job.
Some incentive there?
That is just me. It's just me, not you. It's just me. The same thing I'm trying to imagine about Job. Did Job know how long this was going to last? No. Did he knew that this was about God and not him? All he knew was that I have a God, full stop. Did he know that maybe God had abandoned him? The same thing, we were talking about Job being a friend to God. This is a God that when did God come to answer Job's questions? At the very end of the book. You know,
If at all he answered.
if at all he answered, that is, you know, and then he's like, I call upon you, you are not there. You know, no one is there, not even a wife, not even friends, not even, I'm just alone, not even you who calls yourself as a best friend. So I think Job did not do all this because he knew what the end has for him. He did all this because he knew God was there.
He was
I
faithful to God despite whatever he goes through.
I'm trying to look at a thought just came into my mind. I'm looking at the faith of Job, and I'm thinking, this guy is so faithful to God. I'm just imagining if it was a man in this day and age, I'm probably sure he would have been saying, I think I've been bewitched by somebody, and I have to look for the person who is doing this to me. I have to revenge back.
And even the friends incite him to think that.
Yeah, and they also tell him, man, I think you've sinned against God very badly.
Pastor Veli,
Not only even the friend, even the immediate wife.
that's where I'm
Immediate
headed. In
wife.
fact, we have a couple of minutes. Pastor Veli, then the devil answers and says, skin to skin. Now, it's no longer about the wealth, not about the children. Now, the devil goes for Job's health. That's too close, I call.
Yeah, that's a physical disease. What is, and we must remember that it is Satan who is behind also in this, and all of those disasters. What happens in Job's life? It's not God. And I always admired when God says, Job says in Job 19 that even his skin, when it talks about the skin, I think it's in Job 19 and 26, that, and after my skin is destroyed, this I know that in my flesh I shall see God.
Wow, that's faith.
Yes.
That's hope.
Yes.
And maybe to just to define the word faith is like, what's the meaning of hope and faith? It's trusting in the things that we don't know yet. So this one tells us that Job never knew the ending of this thing, but he knew that whichever the ending, he's faithful to God.
Tom and David, tell me one thing. Tom, did Job know that this was not about him?
Well, he didn't have the full picture. He didn't have the full picture. And there's a verse that really summarizes Job's trust in God. Mark, you can help me remember it.
Job 13:15.
Job 13:15. Very powerful text. I think it's wise if we just read it. Job 13:15, the Bible says, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. I mean, this is just powerful. I mean, he was going to hold on to God regardless whether he had the full picture or not.
David, do the youth come to that point? Even if I go through what experience, I'm going to trust God.
The youth of in our generation, maybe they are there because
Maybe.
Are you one of them?
probably it could be. I may be one of them. I'm not sure yet. But you see, reaching at this point where you see when you in Job chapter 2 verse, I think it's chapter 2 verse 10, where the wife asks Job to curse God and do what and die. But know what Job says? If we can accept good from God, why don't we also accept what? Why can't we? Which youth can say that? Which which one? Who among us can say that because God has given me food, then let God make me sleep hungry?
We will always be happy when we have pocket money, we are dressed well, but something wrong.
That's why
Forget.
now we run to God in prayer.
The scholars
We go to prayer band every evening.
Exactly.
the scholars from the University of East Africa Baraton are saying, can we trust God even when there is no incentive? Job wasn't given an incentive like the devil is charging God with. What about you? Don't go away. We want to discover more as we come back. What's God's character? You don't want to go away.